Radio Show with your host, Lonnie Clark. We stand together and accept that we now live in a world transformed by Fukushima. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on UCY.TV Radio. We relentlessly engage every ear that listens. We expose and confront the complete lack of accountability for the nuclear industry. Consider social engineering programs who view our bodies, minds, and souls as assets on a balance sheet. We discuss vital current issues, interview activists, and engage our audience in an effort to allow all voices to be heard. The Age of Fission radio show creates a venue that all will choose. We encourage our listeners to reclaim their power and their courage to take action and save our planet from the ravages of greed and indifference. Our actions matter. Every voice matters. We remind our listeners that happiness is resistance. Love is greater than fear. Good morning, UCY.TV radio listeners. This is Lonnie Clark with the Age of Fission radio show. Today is February 22nd, 2017, and I'll introduce him right away since we can hear him. It's Crow back with us. He's a shaman that I met in my ordinary life in a different venue. But Crow, welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Lonnie. One quick correction, though. We prefer to be referred to as Shamanic Practitioner.
Shamanic Practitioner. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for correcting me.
No problem.
Shamanic Practitioner. And not a shaman. Tell us the difference. Like when people refer to themselves as shaman or Shamanic Practitioner, what's that difference?
Well, I'd be wary of anyone who introduced themselves as a shaman. A friend of mine explains it as you can call someone else wise, but if you call yourself wise, it might say something about yourself that you don't want to get across.
Okay.
The word itself is Siberian, and it refers to what people would call the ones who see within their community, and it just became a term that anthropologists use to kind of level the definition across cultures of people who fulfill that place in the culture.
The ones who see. I like that. That gives it more depth of meaning. Thank you for explaining that.
Sure. Yeah.
So look, I wanted to talk to you about, I know there's an event coming up with your organization or some update on your travels. You were organizing some travels around the world. Why don't you explain to us a little bit how people can reach you, a little bit of background for those of that are our listeners who may have missed your last interview. Give them a brief synopsis of introduction and your website. Tell them for sure how to find your website and give us an update on the activities that you've been engaged in.
Sure. I'm very happy to announce that our trip to Mongolia has been filled. We have our maximum number of participants on this particular trip. And the purpose for this trip, as well as anything else that we're trying to do right now, is to take people who are involved in shamanic work and introduce them to other cultures where shamanism is being practiced, kind of as a cultural exchange and a kind of a goodwill global networking attempt. Part of the focus of the group that I formed with a fellow practitioner.
What's the name of the group? Yeah,
it's called Shamanic Voyages,
Great.
And it is primarily for, at least at this point, for North Americans and Western Europeans to join together to travel to other areas where our first trip will be to Mongolia, to the steppes. And the next trip, which will be just about a year from now, will be to Peru, both in the mountain region and in the jungle as well. Peru is an area I've been to several times in the past and have some, really very strong relationships with some wonderful people down there. I hope to be forming similar relationships with people in Mongolia, and have been, in touch with people. The one nice thing about the digital age is that you can't open your world without having to leave your leave your house.
Like us, for example.
Right now, yeah, sure. It's the days are long gone when you had to listen to the way your phone rang, so you or your neighbor didn't pick it up when you're sharing a line.
Right.
I remember those days.
Lots of people probably don't even know what we're talking about.
That's true. Probably most of them. But the one of the nice things is that I've been becoming more involved in some of the goings on in Mongolia that were brought to my attention by other shamans, and that is in a water protection movement, much like we're having here, is taking place there. The difference is not that great, really.
Wow.
It is multinational interests seeking to, exploit the resources of the earth for their own personal benefit, and not really caring.
Water's the new gold, I guess, right?
Well, it's not so much the new gold; it's the casualty. Here in Standing Rock, it's about oil, and in Noyon, it is largely mining for precious metals. The biggest offender right now is a Canadian mining company that has come in. Mongolia, not very long ago, was part of the Soviet bloc, and they recently gained their independence. They are a functioning democracy, probably, more so than here even. But like a lot of democracies, people who get comfortable in power begin to, think less about the public good and a little more about their own comfort. I would have to say. And there have been laws that have been tweaked and relaxed and worked around, so multinational corporations can come in and frankly, to give the benefit of the doubt to the Mongolian government, they really are many of them are trying to make life better, and adapt to changing times. What is it, 2/3? I think I might have the number wrong, but a very large proportion of the population of the entire country of Mongolia lives in the capital city of Ulaanbaatar. And that's a very difficult change for people to negotiate. Very different.
Say that again. Would you mind saying that again? The
Sure.
The entire population?
Well, it traditionally has been a very nomadic country. People subsist largely by shepherding. They have a very strong tradition around horsemanship. Some of the best horses in Europe or Asia were sourced from stock in Mongolia. The horsemen, a lot of Americans might look at Mongolian culture of nomads and see some very strong reflections of what we picture the American West looking like after the introduction of the horse, but before the native cultures were really pushed into the background. A very strong relationship with the earth, a very strong connection to other animals, very close-knit tribal groups, if you will. I don't know, tribal is not the right word, but the term yurt that a lot of people are familiar with for those round buildings actually refers to something less than a village, but a collection of these structures that in Mongolia they call gurs, the round, made of lattice wood for a frame with felt wrapped around it. So they're circular with a conical roof. Doors always face the same way. They're all set up, pretty much in the same way, so that if you walk into a yurt, you're going to know where everything is, basically. And people would pick these buildings up and move them, with grazing and so forth. Very pastoral lifestyle. You do not even knock. One of the traditions there is that when you approach a yurt, even if you've never been there before, you shout out a phrase which translates to "hold your dog," basically, and then you can just walk right in and expect, and you will receive hospitality. Very, very lovely culture, very admirable in a lot of ways. But once the Soviets came in and they started pouring concrete and making cities and so forth, a lot of things changed, and many people felt driven to the refuge of the cities and what they offered. It's hard to always understand why these trends happen, but culturally, it opened up a lot of opportunities for people. It presented them with a lot of things that they never had before in the way of healthcare and education and things like that. But there was a downside too, because a lot of that natural lifestyle that people live, pretty much had to change.
It gets disappeared. It's like what happens. It's not like it's intentional, but traditions, unless they're followed, are lost. So a lot of that whole thing becomes different. It just it becomes something else. They were introduced to the Western world essentially and said, "Wow, this is pretty comfortable. We'll take it."
Or even they might have come because grandmother was ill and needed medical resources, and they never planned to stay. The next thing nobody felt they could leave.
Or their entire grazing areas or wherever it was taken up by concrete in cities.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And this Ulaanbaatar, the capital, has a very large population of the entire country, which how they start on that, and that's a major thing for a culture to adapt to.
Yeah.
So with this change and with the curtain being lifted once the Soviets pretty much retreated back to the Russian Federation, Mongolia again got its independence. Whatever the Soviets were doing as far as mining and so on before wasn't open necessarily to world view. Now it is.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The Mongolians themselves had not developed the infrastructure to do a lot of the exploitation themselves, so they were immediately open to the market forces of the West, and you know how that can be. What a totalitarian government can't accomplish all the time. Oftentimes, capitalism will, and the particular threat that I wanted to focus on that the other shamans had brought to my attention is this Noyon mountain. It's Noyon, palindrome, and it's more than a single mountain. It's a region. It's a very large mountainous region that is the source of most of the water that goes into Lake Baikal, which is, I believe, over the border in Russia. The largest source of unfrozen fresh water on Earth. It's a very deep lake.
Wow.
And the rivers that lead to it, I can't begin to tell you how important they are to a culture that lives in a very arid place. They don't have a ton of rainfall coming down. Water is generally sourced from these rivers, and the underground rivers that are also associated with rivers that are accessed through wells and so forth. And many of these wells have already been tainted. Some of them, the water is gone from them because of diversion, by the mining companies and so forth. A lot of, you have to be careful of what you read in this day and age, because on the internet you can get any story you want to read. So I'm really trying to cross-reference some of the stuff that initially doesn't sound like it can be. And, you know, a lot of the local reporting does bear out, in UNESCO, does bear out a lot of what is being reported by locals as far as water, you know, disappearing and you know, just the very reasonable fears they have of you know, perhaps receiving a death blow to their lifestyle, because once the water is gone, that's it. You know, the game changes completely. And you know, unfortunately, we're not seeing enough of it here in the U.S., but we're seeing it here in the U.S. as well, with the Dakota Access Pipeline, a serious threat for a small region, but very serious nonetheless. And the whole principle is so important. And I'm frankly really disappointed in the U.S. press for not covering it adequately, because I seek it out. I can find something new every day that's newsworthy about, you know, Dakota Access and Standing Rock, and in the newspapers I'm not seeing, you know, I'm not seeing much at all. You know, very little. Once in a while, a small, you know, a small piece in the paper that almost underplays what's going on. And today, as a matter of fact, at 2:00 local time, at Standing Rock, there is very likely to be a raid. The deadline will expire. Everyone who is camped, you know, where we've been seeing all the action happening, has to be either evacuated on what they call amnesty buses, or they will be arrested if they're still there after 2. Many people are planning to stay and be arrested. You know, bless them. They are heroes. And many, I think, are disheartened because, you know, the United States government is playing hardball. They are refusing to listen to the pleas. And, you know, frankly, I'm proud to call myself an American. I love my country, but I am ashamed of my government. This is inexcusable. And I feel, as a global citizen, that it's important to take a stand, both here at home and abroad, and really try to work for healing the global pestilence of greed that you know that Mother Earth is suffering, you know, suffering from right now. You know, I don't know how eloquent I'm being, but I imagine you can probably feel the passion in my voice, because I can feel it in my chest.
Well, look, we all kind of feel assaulted. This is the thing. We're feeling assaulted. This is why, you know, I mean, it's becoming apparent. I mean, this conversation moved from Mongolia to the United States in a flash of a second for the same reason that we feel passionate. I mean, this is why I'm up every day at 8:00 now interviewing. I want to have this venue open for people out there actively doing stuff, and because we need to band together and let each other know that we're not alone in our despair and our activities, because we can right the ship. I mean, doesn't mean we have to just give it all up to the evil forces on the planet. I don't believe that's why we're here. I think we're actually here to save our planet from these people.
And I'm very grateful to you for presenting this platform for people to accomplish exactly what you just said. You know, it started for you with the flashpoint at Fukushima, and it has evolved into many things.
Well, because I recognize that Fukushima, the issues of nuclear contamination and ignoring it, the alternative facts. This is why we have a president who has decided he's going to listen to alternative facts. He doesn't get his daily briefing. He doesn't want to know the information that the intelligence community has. He's not interested in what the scientists say. He's listening to his alternative facts. We've been doing that for 70 years with the nuclear industry. The people in Mongolia are beginning to get it, what's happened to them. All of a sudden they're like, say, what? You're going to do what to our rivers? You know what I mean? Like, these are just innocent people who didn't even lock their doors. You just walk
Right.
into their place and they're like, okay, hi, how you doing? Like, imagine that culture where you're completely open all the time. That's your natural state of being. And then you're shoved into a city where you have to lock your doors. Like
Yeah.
that's an incredible, I mean, this is how we can easily move from there to Standing Rock, because we're all one human race and we're experiencing, I mean, the assault on our planet and our people is, we do need to stand up. The time is now. And I think we need to urge those people who are working for the police force and for the National Guard to say, no, we are not going to do it. We need conscientious objectors. We need people who are in those positions to say, we're not enforcing, we're not going to shoot rubber bullets at innocent people standing against an oil company. We know you want
And
to have that oil, but figure out a different way to get it.
yeah, and that's very true. And I really respect and thank the American veterans that are standing with the Standing Rock people. These brave soldiers and ex-soldiers, I think, have one thing really straight in their head, and is they swore to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that's clear. And not only are they doing that, but they're also standing up for what they know is right. In a way, I have a lot of compassion for the soldiers in the Corps of Engineers and the law enforcement people that are there because they are being ordered to be there and they're feeling conflicted. A lot of them are our brothers and sisters in spirit. They're on the wrong side of the fence. And I think that the way that the people at Standing Rock are defying the orders of the government is so right. They're being very firm about it being spiritual, it being about prayer, about nonviolence. And, Gandhi changed India, and I think that the people at Standing Rock, if they hold to their principles, are going to change some hearts as well. And it doesn't have to be by pointing the finger and telling people to be ashamed of themselves, but to be standing there as an example of doing the right thing for the right reason with the right methods. And I can't be there myself, but I will spend time, a part of my day, with a rattle or a drum, sending my heartfelt support. Some people might think that that's, what is that? For me, it's something very palpable and very real.
I think so. And I think we all need to yes, if this is why I really genuinely believe our thoughts are things. We have greater force. There's more of us. If we stay focused on our intentions, on the true spirit of love, and really just send our positive energy to the people over at Standing Rock. Take a few minutes at some point today, before 2:00, and just send the greatest good that can possibly happen, the best result. Speak to the minds of the people that are carrying the weapons, not to the water protectors. Their intentions are already pure, and you know what I mean. Their intentions are to stand for the earth. But I think we need to send energy out to the people that are carrying the weapons and are intent on enforcing these illicit laws. It's not even law; it's completely illegal behavior. Frankly, I mean, the whole thing is completely illegal. So,
yeah.
and I think if we just put our intentions on that and just have them, the greatest good that can possibly happen, and have it just resolve peacefully. I really think if we, imagine if we got 2 or 3 million people focusing on that at a certain point, wherever you're at, if it's 1:30 Standing Rock time, wherever you're at, and just put your intention on that. I don't know, even 5 minutes on it I really believe it would change things. It makes a difference.
Absolutely. And any small step that a person takes is collectively a move in the right direction.
That's
And
exactly right.
yeah. I really like the part of your intro that says, love is greater than fear, or, something to that
Yeah.
effect. And that's really what the way that this conflict is going to be fought out, is those who are trying to use fear as a weapon against those who are strong enough to use love as a shield, and really try to change consciousness, because that is really what's central to all of this. There's a lot of issues. There's treaty rights. There's there's corruption. There's all kinds of a positive and negative small ways you can look at the issue. But when you come right down to it, it's about the common good versus greed. That is really what most of these issues boil down to, whether it's in Mongolia, whether it's here at Standing Rock, whether it was, you name it, just about any major conflict that really polarizes people. To honestly look at it, there's a seed of greed in most disharmony, and love and positive intent and stuff like that is the only thing that is going to eventually win out. I don't know how to keep expressing it the same, but we, is a to bring it back to shamanism is a spiritual community, because that's basically what I'm trying to make my work about. Shamans almost universally believe that all things have spirit, and that closeness to nature is essential for a harmonious existence. And that is largely where we need to focus our attention as shamans and as spokespeople for living a spiritual lifestyle. There are many people, there are religions, there are martial artists, there are social activist groups that all, are seeking basically the same thing, to put things back into harmony. That's it's been disrupted, and a lot of times there's a lot of resistance. And speaking from a shamanic perspective, shamanism was, it served a very important function in most communities and cultures until societies became more complex and started to develop organized religions. And at some point, we were basically persecuted. Sometimes they call them witches, or you referred to the primitive bone through the nose witch doctor image that some people might get. When that culture is no longer seen as a genuine, authentic culture, it becomes a cartoon, and people laugh it away, or missionaries will come in and
well, it's kind of seen as like a snake oil salesman, right? I mean, most people have no real respect when you say, I'm a shamanic practitioner. They're like, oh yeah, we know what you're doing. You're going to sell us some oil and try to get us enrolled in some class. That's really, they don't
the way
see
people
the
see it.
picture.
But it's funny though, because sometimes that conflict is mutual right from the beginning, where a missionary will come in and think that about the native practitioner, or the indigenous practitioner, and the indigenous practitioner will think the same thing about the Bible thumpers.
Exactly.
Like what are they trying to sell us? So yeah. That is one of the things that we need to overcome, is this mutual distrust, through ignorance of other people's belief systems and just simple identities. I sometimes, and I try to correct myself when I catch myself, but I sometimes will speak in derogatory ways against some religious groups because of my intolerance for intolerance, or at least that's what I like to think of it as. But that's kind of stupid.
Well, I don't know if it's stupid. I mean, I don't think we need to tolerate intolerance. I don't think that we need to have, like, that whole thing with that guy, Milo, whatever it is, and when that whole thing erupted in Berkeley, he should have never had a voice on the Berkeley University. Sorry, no. We're
Yeah.
not going to listen to neo-Nazis on our, if you want to rent a hall in City Hall, maybe. You know what I
Well,
mean? But
that's
I don't think it should be at the universities. I think we really, honestly need to draw the line where we need to protect our children. These are kids.
it's indefensible to support that a platform for that kind of talk. As far as I'm concerned, we know what he's going to say, but at the same time, supporting the principle of freedom of expression is very important. And if somebody is a lunatic, let them bark at a tree, but don't give them a venue. People might think that any new idea is flaky, but it's gonna attract people by its merits, and thrive that way. Unfortunately, if hate is coming out and it's attracting people who share that hate, which is basically rooted in fear, there's going to be a presence there as well. But for a place like Berkeley to support someone,
Well, it does make sense. It's where the Berkeley nuclear labs are. I mean, that's actually a contaminated nuclear zone. So, I mean, it does make sense. It's part of their alternative facts, like, well, we need to listen to everybody. No, I actually don't. I really don't agree with that. I feel very strongly that the universities ought to allow people who give messages of unity and not one of hate, like any racist, bigoted, anybody who, like they wouldn't book like an anti-Semitic person at Berkeley. So why allow a Nazi there? You know what I mean? It's outrageous. And then in terms of how the thing got violent, we have no idea whether there were agitators from our government in there agitating, which we know they do. I mean, this is the doublethink that we live in our culture. We don't know what's real or not real. This is why, like the Facebook, this is why the water protectors, we're talking about the water protectors here. We've got a lot of our vision came from the YouTube and the Facebook live feeds because we had no idea how militarized the police. When we say militarized police, we're talking these guys look like there's a war zone. It doesn't look like Andy Mayberry with his little car and a bunch of his little Okie friends with their little pistols hung out. No, these guys have like massive weapons. I mean, and they've been torturing people. I mean, on native lands. This is the ironic part. They're usurping land from the natives, once again, disregarding completely the treaty, saying, well, we need it too bad. We're taking it. And that's what the executive order was about. That's why they're ramping up this is why the deadline is today. I mean.
Yeah. And to overthink it can just make you crazy. I think
that's what they want us to do. I think they want us to like kind of lose it. I think they want us to feel insecure. Oh, yeah. It's that whole gaslighting abuser syndrome of you have to take whatever we put you through because you should be grateful for any little more. It's like what they really. I actually said this to a congressman or a senator this week when I called them. I said, actually it was Senator Enzi, because I heard him say that the United States is the biggest corporation on the planet. And I called him and I said, you know what? We are not a corporation. We're a government of and for and by the people. And really, the plans you guys are implementing, it's straight out of Alan Greenspan's playbook. It's easy to see. Anybody can see it. But we've seen the results of what you did to Chile, what you did to South America. That's what you're doing here. And you guys need to read Dickens instead of Ayn Rand, because that's what you're bringing back, the days of Dickens. And this is how we've evolved to the culture that we have, because we used to live in the days of Dickens. And societies and governments said, wait a minute, it's not fair. It's not right to treat people like this.
And the cautionary tale is very important, but I would prefer to actually have them reading Rumi or Khalil Gibran or, someone who talks about love and peace and spiritual centeredness. I know not everybody is going to do that, but we need some kind of spiritual literacy. And I'm not talking about, some people do get that from organized religion. That's wonderful. But shamanism, who was it? I think it was probably Michael Harner who said, shamanism is spiritual democracy. We are reclaiming what was taken from us by force and violence. And that was the direct revelation, people's right to interact with their spiritual truth or their guidance in the spiritual states for good and for the good of their community. That was all taken away when organized religion started to roll through Europe and Asia, and people were they were not, if not forbidden to pray, they were forbidden to pray except this way, right. And that the political structure had representatives that all prayer and all spiritual growth was supposed to go through, some people, that part doesn't bother them. They really do get spiritually fed in their organized faith, and that's great for them so long as they're not harming others in the practice. But in some ways, at least in history, feeding that machine did lead to some terrible exploitation and persecution and just outright evil. I am happy to say that for the most part, it's not as bad now as it once was, but there are still elements that really are bad, and it's about intolerance, and it's about some people accepting blinders, and those who are placing the blinders on are doing it to enrich themselves, and it's really sad. And I think that it's important for us to if not leave oppressive ideologies, at least to experience some genuine personal spiritual awareness ourselves. And that's, again, I think of these huge belief structures coming up against people who just want to protect the land they live on, and will do so by beating a drum and singing and asking other people to support them in a spiritual and a really basic way. And the lawyers, or the people who like to think about lawyers or think like lawyers, they want to complicate the issue and thereby do their sleight of hand. And it doesn't have to be complicated. What's wrong is wrong. And I think anybody who really sits down and tries to get into an open, prayerful state can ask themselves, what's wrong with this picture? And if you have a calling, in your case, I think I have often thought of you as a real social activist. You are doing it. You're performing your role. In my case, I finally found the way that I feel I'm expressing myself properly and effectively, and I really encourage anyone who doesn't know what to do to try something.
Just to do something, take action. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be the correct. It may not be the right thing the first time, but you keep working through it. If it doesn't feel right, that means modify it, figure out how you can change it, or what actions, a little bit different actions that you can take. Be led by your spirit. You can feel it when how you know the difference is you feel compelled to do something. You feel happy you're doing it. When you're in harmony with your spiritual path, you feel happy you're doing it. This is why, Mother Teresa could go out on the, in Calcutta and do what she needed to do, because it wasn't a drudgery to her. She wanted to do it every day.
Right. And she was supported by spirit to do things that were almost humanly impossible, and that's where the world of spirit really shows itself to be true. To focus back on shamanism, because I know that I've been kind of on a tirade about causes, but in a nutshell, shamanism is difficult to describe in this kind of venue, but it is, at least core shamanism is practiced in the United States now, is about getting into a space where you open yourself to teachings of the spirit realm. And we generally achieve that by sonic driving, which is accomplished with a drum or rattles. And the drum is beaten at a frequency that translates to 4.5 to 5 hertz, which is right in the lower theta range of the EEG brainwave. And it's what, from a scientific perspective, it's the trance state. And that really opens you to imaging. Some people say if it's imagination, it's not real, but that's not what this is about. Its realness will reveal itself as images come to you. There are frameworks to interpret them through, but generally most things will make themselves clear. In tradition, you generally, when you first start to journey, you identify with power animals or other teaching spirits. And it sounds a little odd to people who haven't been exposed to it before, but this has really been, the framework has been set up by the work of Michael Harner and many others to rediscover what has commonly been practiced throughout humanity for in excess of 40,000 years. These techniques and these images are almost universally, or at least humanly, universally experienced. There are some cultural changes in different areas and so forth, but as practiced here through core shamanism, we try to minimize the dogma around it, but what is universally recognized, we accept as being real. And our experiences have shown that the otherwise unexplainable can be achieved through the intercession of spiritual power. For those who categorically dismiss this type of talk for the preference to science, all they really have to do is look at quantum physics to recognize that yes, sometimes the simple fact of a person being part of an experiment can change the results or influence the results of the experiment, which empirical science is a little bit uncomfortable with because they like cause and effect all the time. And if they can't understand the cause, they want to dismiss the effect. It's kind of ludicrous that empirical science states that there is no such thing as spirit because it can't be demonstrated. But if they use that same reasoning, you cannot demonstrate that it does not exist. So to base scientific thought on the fact that there is no spiritual realm is unscientific. You, I think, really need to leave open the possibility and consider that just like the electron that might disappear from one place and reappear somewhere else, there's more out there that is actually a real part of this universe that we cannot explain or understand, but still can be used for good, can be used for gaining knowledge, can be used to restore harmony where there's disharmony. I cannot describe how enlightening it was for me to be able to really recognize. I came into this as a skeptic, but to really recognize that there is something that does work here. And sometimes my skepticism returns during a bad day or during a bad week. But I am being
Doesn't it?
conditioned.
That's the way all faith goes, though, John. You know, when we actually get challenged in life, you're like, oh my God, don't tell me there's a God. You know what I mean? Like we feel so lost and abandoned by the emotions and the circumstances. We're like, we challenge everything. You know what I mean? Like, isn't that the journey of faith, though? Like, no matter what faith you're on, that is really the journey of faith.
Partly the journey of faith, but there's also the clear knowledge that if I do what I did before, that proved to me that these really nice experiences I had, this real positive outlook I had, I can get there again, because at least in my understanding of the world, there is a spiritual realm. There is a greater existence than this middle world that we live in with concrete objects and
I get what you're saying.
It's so much greater, and it is open to us, and we can affect things here by being open to the compassion, the universal compassion that does exist out there. As shamans, we generally work with compassionate, helping spirits from what is normally described as the lower realm and the upper realm. We refer to this day-to-day existence as the middle realm, which has both a physical and spiritual aspect to it. And the reason we describe these things is because this is pretty much how it's been described since the dawn of history for those who have interceded and served their communities by its practice. And I think it's great that it's returning. We are experiencing a renaissance. And in Mongolia, when the communists were in charge, shamanism was illegal, and it's very hard to stamp things out in a nomadic society. So it did persist, but it persisted under the radar. It didn't persist so much in the city, but as soon as democracy returned, shamanism burgeoned. And for people who are interested in learning more about shamanism, I caution you, again, to be wary of people who introduce themselves as shamans. If you introduce yourself as a shamanic practitioner, you're describing the methods that you use and the system that you're working with. But it's like an honorific. I have never heard a judge refer to himself as my honor.
Right. I get what you're saying.
Someone calls themselves a shaman, they're basically calling themselves, a wise seer, and there's a certain lack of humility there.
It's a practice. I get what you're saying. It's really a practice.
Yep.
So how do people find you, look into what you're experiencing and sharing with people? What is the do you have a Facebook page or do you have a website?
Yes. I'm very active with the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. I'm currently enrolled in a 3-year program that they offer. I've taken advanced trainings prior, and that only suggests that I've had a great time learning. And I am currently involved in that. I have a Facebook page for Shamanic Voyages, which is, I believe, if you just put Shamanic Voyages in the search bar, it'll come up. It's not highly developed. It's just talking a little bit about our mission and where we're going, and it refers people to our webpage, which is www.shamanicvoyages.com.
I'll put a link in the comments. I'll put a link in the podcast, so it'll be there.
Okay, and that is going to change.
Jules will do that actually.
In the future. Yeah, I'm sure it will redirect once it changes. But we're trying to form this into a nonprofit educational / travel group. So we will be taking people who have some involvement in shamanism around the world to experience other shamanic cultures and share practices and so forth. But anybody who is interested in shamanism in general, I am always happy to answer mail. And mail@shamanicvoyages.com is one way that you can get in touch with me personally. But I recommend also shamanism.org is the foundation's website. There are some really great teachers out there. Sandra Ingerman, Jerry Stearns are a couple people who I think are gifted speakers and teachers. There are many people who are far more eloquent and dedicated than others, but there is no hierarchy. There are no leaders in shamanism. There will no once people start to call themselves a leader, they're forming a religion. That is not what we are. We are spiritual practitioners. We're caring people. A lot of us are drawn to healing work, and it's just a really wonderful movement and a wonderful renaissance that's taking place. And there's a lot of imitation out there. I don't want to talk badly about those people, but the depth of commitment varies a great deal. So if you want to learn, just be careful to learn from more than one teacher, and truth reveals itself. People will either be.
Well, unfortunately, sometimes truth reveals itself a little after you've learned the lesson. That's the downside, John.
Well,
Speaking
those
from
lessons
experience, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but those lessons stick, though, don't they?
Yeah. I beg your pardon. Crow refers to himself as Crow, and I've known him as John McKinnon for many years, probably 20 years now, hasn't it been, John? Almost like 15, 20 years.
Yeah,
so
that's how I sign my tax returns.
Yes, that's how I met Crow. So we've kind of evolved, but I keep referring to you as John, but I'll counter myself to keep referring to you as Crow.
I answer both.
Good. Well, we've got like about 8 minutes left. I really do want to go back and cover this Noyon Mountain, and that is where the water protectors are taking a stand there. And then we have the Dakota Pipeline folks who actually are about to be under. This is the weirdest thing. Like many people in our country know there's a war going on in North Dakota. There's an assault. The media out there taking pictures of it all. And what they're deciding to do is not make it a big deal, not make it. Our elected officials are like, ho-hum, time to go have lunch. You know what I mean? It's astounding the callousness of people's pain and anxiety. Forget the idea of just even destroying the water supply with his pipeline. But let's just think about the callousness of just harming all these people. And the people who could stop it outside of President Trump, who has no intention of stopping it. In fact, he probably believes in it. He signed the executive order.
I've heard he's invested in it. I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, I've heard that he's a small investor. It's only $1 million. He's only got a little tiny piece of the pie, but he's still an investor.
Yep.
I mean, that alone speaks. But you know what? Our country knew this when they elected him. This is what they signed up for. America is about to receive their comeuppance by asking for what they wanted. I mean, it is a serious offense, I believe. And I think we're just going to have to, we'll be able to pull ourselves out from this. And I don't think it's going to destroy our country or our democracy.
No. But there will be
think
casualties.
Yeah. And there's going to be big steps back, and we're going to have, maybe this is what we need to really start regenerating the earth. And, we need to create industries that heal our planet, not industries that harm our planet. So maybe this is what's needed to refocus that.
Right. And this is where we can vote with our pocketbooks, because that's where most of the people who are, being rapacious with our country now are coming from. Did you get those non-paper towels I sent you?
I did. Yes, that was awesome.
Okay. That's one small thing, not using the paper towels.
And actually, you want to know what's interesting about that, John? My daughter actually made non-toilet paper. When you go to her house, there's these she made stacks of like, so you can wipe yourself when you're in the bathroom, and there's a bin that she has there where you put it in there and they wash it.
Yeah,
I mean, and it's a way to not use paper. I had never heard of it, but actually, so those non-paper towels, it's kind of like this idea of before we had disposable diapers. Actually, what people did was they didn't create diapers. They used something called diaperless. I mean, it was just, it's a way to
my
listen
son
to
was
your
paper
child.
trained.
Well, my kids did it, but all three of my grandchildren have been diaperless, all of them.
Yeah. Yep.
And it is a possible, but the difference is you have to pay attention to your children. You have to listen to them. You have to watch their behavior. You have to listen to their cues, and you can't just put them off for 5 minutes because an infant can't wait 5 minutes.
Right. And, children and puppies are not that different. Some basic ways.
Exactly. Well, they kind of train us. Right?
We'll end up with a good child, good pet.
Yeah. Well, a therapist told me that once a long time ago. A happy mom is happy kids. So the number one focus when you're having issues with your kids is get you right, get yourself right. So. Well, look, this is really where we're at. It's that same conversation in our country. We need to get ourselves right. And, I think that it's really important. I hope that everybody will join us in taking a few moments of prayer around 1:30 North Dakota time here. That will be, I think, 11:30 our time. On the East Coast, it's what time? 12:30?
Yeah. And then also the Lakota People's Law Project is providing live streaming all day long. So if you want to look for them on Facebook, you can watch things as they happen or things that just unfolded. And while we still have a couple of minutes, I would like to give you the Facebook page for the Noyon Mountain. It's Save Noyon Mountain Community Page. They're working on a website, but it is not up yet. There you can you can read a short bio of what's taking place there and what you can do to support. And they're less looking for money than they are for spreading awareness. I suppose if you have money, that it would be helpful for what they're trying to do, but mainly they're trying to get people to pay attention because, as you know, darkness prefers to be in the shadows. The sunlight is the best disinfectant there is, and the more light we shine on people, not just in Noyon, but also here in the good old United States, the easier it will be to see the truth.
Yes, so that really is what we need to do, is shine the light on these things. That's really the issue, isn't it? It's just like, have us take a look at them. Let's just face it. That's kind of the total meme. Well, look, John, I guess we have about 2 minutes left, or maybe a minute left. I want to thank you for joining us. I've been speaking with Crow from shamanicvoyages.com, right? That's the name of your organization. Yes. And so you can go there and get more about what that organization is doing so that you can pay attention to this and figure out a different way. I mean, this is part of our activity, is allowing ourselves to open up spiritually, because I really believe it's going to be our spiritual path that's going to lead us out of this darkness. And that does not mean going to church. I mean, you can go to church every Sunday if that makes you feel better, but it's your day-to-day, everyday activity and your intentions in your mind that's going to change us. That's what I think.
Doing that and all the other good things are, can't hurt.
Can't hurt. That's exactly right.
Bring the good message into your churches. That's probably, a really good service that people can perform as well. Because I think most people who carry themselves to a house of worship really do have some kernel in their heart that wants to do good.
There you go. Well, put your courage feet on. Thank you, Crow, for joining